By the late 1930s, the U.S. Army Air Corps was searching for a rugged, high-performance fighter to dominate the skies in any climate. Republic Aviation answered that call with a massive, heavily armed fighter designed to endure punishment. The P-47 Thunderbolt, nicknamed the Jug because of its bulky fuselage and strong frame. Its development, led by Alexander Kartveli, focused on a radial engine design that could withstand the harsh conditions of aerial combat while packing an unprecedented punch. The P-47 was powered by the powerful Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine, producing 2,000 horsepower and capable of reaching speeds of over 430 miles per hour. Unlike the more nimble fighters of its era, the Thunderbolt relied on its durability, firepower, and speed in a dive to win engagements. Early test flights impressed the Army, and by 1942, the first Thunderbolts were rolling off the production line. Pilots quickly realized that flying the P-47 was different from other fighters. Its size and weight made it slower in tight turns, but its radial engine could absorb tremendous damage without losing power. The cockpit offered excellent visibility, and the aircraft could carry 8.5 caliber machine guns plus bombs or rockets, making it lethal against both enemy aircraft and ground targets. When the first Thunderbolts arrived in England in 1943, American pilots were assigned to the 8th Air Force, facing the daunting skies over Nazi-occupied Europe. The Luftwaffe pilots had already dominated the air, but the arrival of the P-47 promised a shift. The Allies now had a fighter that could escort bombers deep into enemy territory and survive hits that would down most other planes. Veterans often recalled the first missions as terrifying yet exhilarating. The roar of the engine, the vibration through the fuselage, and the sheer confidence in the plane's toughness created a bond between pilot and machine. As one American pilot described it, "You could take a direct hit in the engine and still bring her home." The Jug didn't just fight, it endured. The spring of 1943 marked a turning point for the U.S. Army Air Forces in Europe. The 8th Air Force, stationed in England, had been struggling with daylight bombing missions over Germany. Bomber crews faced near-certain losses without reliable fighter protection. That's when the P-47 Thunderbolt finally arrived in strength, bringing hope to pilots and crews alike. The first combat missions were a mix of excitement and nerves. Pilots like Colonel Hubert "Hub" Zemke and Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson were among the first to fly the Thunderbolt over heavily defended airspace. These missions typically involved escorting B-17 Flying Fortresses or B-24 Liberators as they thundered over industrial targets in northern France and the Ruhr Valley. The skies were filled with flak, and Luftwaffe fighters patrolled aggressively, but the P-47's speed in a dive and heavy armament made it a formidable opponent. Flying the Thunderbolt wasn't easy. Its large size and heavy controls required strength and focus, especially during long missions lasting 6 or 7 hours. Pilots relied on tactics that emphasized the plane's advantages: diving attacks to build speed, coordinated team maneuvers, and careful escort formations. Early encounters proved successful. The P-47 could take a hit in the engine or fuselage and keep flying, allowing pilots to return to base even after sustaining significant battle damage. One notable first encounter occurred in June 1943, when a squadron of Thunderbolts intercepted a group of Messerschmitt Bf-109s near the coast of France. Using their superior dive speed and heavier firepower, the P-47 pilots managed to shoot down multiple enemy aircraft while sustaining minimal losses. These early victories quickly earned the Thunderbolt respect among both American and German pilots. Ground crews also played a critical role. Maintaining the massive radial engine and ensuring the aircraft were combat-ready required dedication. Pilots knew that behind every successful sortie was a team working tirelessly to keep the Jug in the air. By the end of the year, the P-47 had begun to prove itself as not just a bomber escort, but a resilient, multi-role fighter capable of shifting the air war in favor of the Allies.
By 1944, the P-47 Thunderbolt had cemented its reputation in the skies over Europe, but its role was evolving. While initially designed as a high-altitude escort fighter, pilots and commanders quickly recognized its potential as a ground attack aircraft. Its rugged frame, heavy armament, and ability to carry bombs and rockets made it perfect for strafing runs, close air support, and disrupting enemy supply lines. As the Allies prepared for the invasion of Normandy, the Thunderbolt's versatility became invaluable. In the months leading up to D-Day, P-47s were deployed to attack German airfields, train stations, and armored convoys. Pilots flew at low altitudes, often under heavy anti-aircraft fire, to deliver rockets and bombs with devastating effect. Unlike lighter fighters, the Jug could absorb hits from flak or small arms and still complete its mission. Many pilots recalled that these missions required nerves of steel. The roar of the engine and the smell of cordite filled the cockpit, while explosions and tracer rounds surrounded them. Lieutenant Colonel Donald Blakesley, a famed P-47 pilot, described one harrowing mission. "We would fly over a target and the ground would erupt around us. Trees, vehicles, everything. Yet the Jug never let us down. We'd dive in, release our rockets, and pull up, often with bullet holes in the wings. That plane was a tank in the air." The Normandy invasion in June 1944 showcased the P-47's dual capabilities. Thunderbolts escorted bombers across the Channel, engaging Luftwaffe fighters with deadly efficiency, and then transitioned seamlessly into ground attack missions supporting the troops storming the beaches. Their presence forced German units to keep eyes on the sky, disrupting reinforcements and supply movements. The Thunderbolt's impact was not limited to its firepower. Its psychological effect on both Allied troops and German soldiers was significant. Ground forces learned to rely on the Jug's support, knowing it could strike with precision and survive the dangerous low-level attacks that would destroy lighter aircraft. Meanwhile, German troops referred to the P-47 as a flying tank, acknowledging its ability to endure punishment while delivering lethal strikes. By mid-1944, the P-47 had become more than just a fighter. It was a symbol of American air power, durable, versatile, and unstoppable. Its pilots were not just flying machines, they were flying weapons, shaping the battlefield from above and giving the Allies a critical advantage as the fight moved deeper into occupied Europe. By 1944, the P-47 Thunderbolt had begun to produce some of the most celebrated American aces of World War II. Pilots like Francis Gabreski, Robert S. Johnson, and Jerry Johnson became household names among the 8th Air Force, thanks to their skill, courage, and the reliability of the Jug. These pilots demonstrated that while not the most nimble fighter, the Thunderbolt's firepower and durability could dominate the skies when used strategically. One of the most remarkable aspects of the P-47 was its ability to withstand punishment. Accounts from combat missions revealed planes returning with massive holes in wings and fuselage, yet the pilots survived to fight another day. Gabreski once returned from a mission with his throttle nearly jammed and several machine guns disabled, yet he still managed to escort bombers safely back to England. Such stories quickly spread, boosting morale among both pilots and ground crews. Dogfights over Europe were intense. Luftwaffe fighters, including the nimble Messerschmitt Bf-190 and Focke-Wulf FW-190A, tried to exploit the Thunderbolt's slower turn rate. P-47 pilots had to adapt by using boom and zoom tactics, climbing to higher altitude, diving on the enemy at high speed, firing their 8-caliber machine guns, and then climbing back to safety. The Jug's dive speed and firepower often left German pilots stunned, unable to counter its relentless attacks. The P-47 also excelled in long-range escort missions. Early in 1944, the Allies faced heavy bomber losses due to insufficient fighter cover. The Thunderbolt, with drop tanks extending its range to over 1,000 miles, could accompany bombers deep into Germany, often over heavily defended cities like Berlin and Hamburg. Pilots who survived these missions described the combination of flak, enemy fighters and exhaustion as the ultimate test of endurance. Yet the Jug's rugged frame and radial engine often meant they could return home even when severely damaged. A notable engagement occurred in August 1944 when a squadron of P-47s intercepted a large group of German fighters attempting to attack a bomber formation over the Ruhr Valley. Using teamwork and careful altitude advantage, the Thunderbolt shot down several enemy planes with minimal losses. Observers on the ground noted how the P-47s dominated the airspace with precision and discipline. These combat stories helped cement the P-47's reputation as a plane that didn't just fight, it survived, it delivered, and it shaped the careers of the men who flew it. Pilots and crews alike came to respect the Jug not as a machine, but as a dependable partner in the deadly skies over Europe.
As 1944 progressed and the Allies advanced through France after D-Day, the P-47 Thunderbolt's role increasingly shifted toward ground attack missions. While still a capable escort fighter, the Jug's durability, heavy armament, and bomb-carrying ability made it the perfect aircraft for supporting advancing troops and disrupting enemy supply lines. Low-level strafing became a hallmark of P-47 missions. Pilots would fly just a few hundred feet above the battlefield, firing rockets and .50 caliber machine guns at tanks, trucks, and artillery positions. The missions were perilous. Anti-aircraft fire, small arms, and the chaos of the battlefield made every sortie a life-or-death challenge. Despite this, the Jug could absorb hits that would have downed lighter aircraft, giving pilots the confidence to push forward and strike targets with devastating effect. One memorable mission involved a P-47 squadron supporting the breakout from St. Lo in July 1944. German panzer divisions were attempting to slow the Allied advance, and the Thunderbolts dove repeatedly on armored columns, obliterating vehicles and forcing enemy troops to retreat. Pilots described the sound of rockets and machine guns tearing through tanks as both terrifying and exhilarating. The sheer size and power of the P-47 made it the perfect tool for these missions. In addition to tanks and vehicles, the Jug was effective against bridges, rail lines, and supply depots. Pilots often flew multiple sorties a day, wearing down German defenses and paving the way for ground forces. Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson recalled a mission over Belgium where his squadron destroyed an entire train carrying ammunition, significantly disrupting enemy operations. "We could see the sparks flying, hear the explosions, and know we'd changed the course of that fight," he said. The psychological impact of the P-47 on German forces was immense. Troops on the ground feared the flying tank that could appear suddenly from the sky, attack relentlessly, and survive punishment that would destroy lesser aircraft. Allied ground forces, on the other hand, grew to depend on the Jug's support. Its presence gave soldiers confidence that the skies were not just contested, they were controlled. By the end of 1944, the P-47 had proven itself in every aspect of aerial warfare: escort, dogfight, ground attack, and long-range strike. Its versatility, toughness, and firepower made it one of the most effective and respected aircraft of the war, earning the loyalty of every pilot who climbed into its cockpit. The winter of 1944 brought one of the most challenging campaigns for Allied forces, the Battle of the Bulge. German troops launched a surprise offensive in the Ardennes, aiming to split the Allied front. Harsh weather, freezing temperatures, and heavy snow made both ground and air operations difficult. Yet, when the skies cleared even briefly, the P-47 Thunderbolt proved indispensable. The Jug's rugged design made it ideal for these harsh conditions. Pilots could rely on its radial engine to start even in frigid temperatures, and its robust airframe could withstand minor damage from flak or small arms fire. During this battle, P-47s were primarily tasked with close air support, strafing German armor and supply lines, and disrupting the enemy's advance. Low visibility often forced pilots to fly dangerously close to terrain, relying on instruments, maps, and instinct to locate targets.
One squadron recounts a mission over Bastogne, where they faced a mixture of anti-aircraft fire, snow flurries, and German fighters. Despite the conditions, P-47 pilots managed to destroy dozens of vehicles and ammunition depots, slowing the enemy's momentum. Ground troops noted the impact immediately. The Jug's attacks provided both physical destruction and a morale boost, showing that the Luftwaffe could not dominate the skies entirely. The Battle of the Bulge also highlighted the P-47's endurance. Pilots flew multiple sorties in a single day, often returning with bullet holes, shattered canopies, or damaged landing gear. Yet the aircraft's durability allowed them to safely land and repair quickly. The ability to keep flying under punishing circumstances saved countless lives and helped stem the German advance. In addition to combat missions, the P-47s were critical in reconnaissance and escort roles. They protected slower aircraft, provided aerial observation for ground commanders, and maintained constant pressure on German positions. Their presence forced the enemy to divert resources and weakened the offensive from within. By the end of the Battle of the Bulge, the P-47 had proven itself not just as a fighter or bomber escort, it was a battlefield weapon capable of turning the tide under the most challenging conditions. Its pilots emerged as heroes, and the Jug earned a reputation as the flying tank that could endure punishment, deliver decisive attacks, and survive to fight another day.
As 1945 dawned, the Allied forces were advancing steadily into Germany. The P-47 Thunderbolt, battle-hardened from years of escort, dogfights, and ground attacks, played a crucial role in this final push. With the Luftwaffe weakened and German ground forces retreating, the Jug's combination of speed, firepower, and durability allowed it to strike deep into enemy territory with devastating effect. Thunderbolt squadrons targeted railways, bridges, and supply depots, aiming to cut off German reinforcements and disrupt logistics. Pilots carried bombs and rockets that could destroy tanks, trucks, and trains in a single pass. One mission over the Rhine River involved a squadron bombing and strafing multiple bridges, slowing German troop movements and directly aiding the advancing Allied infantry. The pilots knew that each strike could save lives on the ground by preventing enemy reinforcements from reaching the front. Despite the diminishing Luftwaffe presence, German anti-aircraft fire remained deadly. Pilots often faced intense flak over industrial cities and transportation hubs, testing both skill and nerves. Lieutenant Colonel Hubert Zemke described one sortie as "dancing with death. One wrong move and you're finished," but the Jug could take a beating and keep going. Many P-47s returned with holes in wings and fuselage, yet the pilots survived to fly another mission. The Jug's psychological impact on German soldiers also became evident during these final months. Troops reported hearing the distinctive roar of the Thunderbolt's engine moments before sudden attacks. Ground forces knew that where the Jug flew, destruction followed. Its low-level strikes were particularly feared, as they could decimate columns of retreating soldiers or immobilize armored units. Meanwhile, American pilots refined their tactics, using the P-47's strengths to maximum effect. Boom and zoom attacks, combined with coordinated strikes on moving targets, allowed even small squadrons to wreak havoc on larger enemy forces. The aircraft's heavy armament and payload capacity made it versatile. It could switch from air combat to ground attack seamlessly, adapting to rapidly changing battlefield conditions. By March and April of 1945, the P-47 was everywhere, from escorting bombers over Berlin to attacking retreating forces in southern Germany. Its role in breaking the back of the German military was undeniable. The Jug was no longer just a fighter or escort plane. It had become a strategic weapon, shaping the outcome of the European theater with every sortie flown. While the P-47 Thunderbolt itself was a formidable weapon, it was the pilots who turned it into a legend.
During the final months of World War II, countless stories emerged of bravery, quick thinking, and survival against impossible odds. These personal accounts helped cement the P-47's reputation not only as a powerful aircraft, but as a trusted companion in the skies. One such story involves Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson, one of the top American aces. During a mission over northern Germany, Johnson's aircraft was hit by flak, riddling the fuselage and disabling two of his 8.50 caliber machine guns. Despite heavy damage and intense enemy fire, he managed to complete his mission, strafing a key German supply convoy before safely returning to base. Johnson later remarked that the P-47 was like a tank with wings. Hit it hard and it kept moving. Another pilot, Captain Hubert Zemke, faced a similar test of skill and courage. On a strafing mission in Belgium, anti-aircraft fire tore through his wing and shattered the canopy. Smoke filled the cockpit, yet Zemke held control, completing his run on a German armored column and safely landing with a severely damaged aircraft. Stories like these were common, demonstrating how the Jug's durability saved lives even under extreme conditions. The P-47's design also allowed pilots to recover from situations that would have been fatal in other aircraft. Its radial engine could absorb significant damage and keep running, while the robust airframe protected pilots from flak and small arms fire. Many returned from missions with over 200 bullet holes, yet the plane still made it home. These experiences fostered immense trust between pilot and machine. Even inexperienced pilots quickly learned to exploit the Jug's strengths. Boom and zoom tactics allowed them to dive at high speed, strike the enemy, and climb back to safety. When combined with teamwork, these strategies often turned the tide of aerial battles. By the final months of the war, the P-47 had earned its place in history as a pilot's plane. It was not only a tool of destruction, but a guardian in the sky. Its legacy was forged not just in aerial victories, but in the countless lives it saved, the missions it completed despite heavy damage, and the confidence it inspired in every pilot who climbed into its cockpit. As the war moved toward its final stages in 1945, the P-47 Thunderbolt's long-range capabilities became increasingly important. With drop tanks, the Jug could escort bombers and strike targets far behind enemy lines, reaching Austria, the Balkans, and even deep into southern Germany. These extended missions tested both aircraft and pilot endurance, highlighting the Thunderbolt's versatility. Flying hundreds of miles over hostile territory, pilots faced the constant threat of enemy fighters and anti-aircraft fire. Yet the P-47's design made such missions possible. Its Pratt & Whitney R2800 radial engine was reliable even in extended operations, while the aircraft's heavy armament ensured it could defend itself if attacked. Many pilots recounted flying for 6 to 8 hours straight, navigating clouds, smoke, and battle damage to complete their objectives. One notable operation involved escorting B-17 bombers over Vienna. Thunderbolts accompanied the bombers through heavily defended airspace, engaging Luftwaffe fighters and protecting the formation until the bombs were released. On the way back, pilots conducted additional strafing runs on railways and depots, maximizing the mission's impact. Despite fatigue and cold at high altitudes, the Jug's resilience allowed crews to return safely, often with minor or severe damage. The P-47 also demonstrated adaptability to varied terrains and combat conditions. In the mountainous regions of Austria, pilots adjusted their tactics, using the Jug's dive speed to engage enemy fighters from above and then climbing to avoid anti-aircraft fire from the valleys below. In the Balkans, missions focused on disrupting retreating German convoys, supply lines, and communication networks. Low-level attacks were particularly effective, as the P-47 could absorb hits that would have downed lighter aircraft. These long-range missions emphasized the JUG's dual role as both a fighter and tactical strike platform. Pilots appreciated its combination of firepower, durability, and speed, allowing them to accomplish complex objectives without relying on additional support. The aircraft's reputation continued to grow among Allied forces, who increasingly depended on its capabilities to ensure the success of critical operations deep inside enemy territory. By the spring of 1945, the P-47 Thunderbolt had proven itself not just as a frontline fighter, but as a strategic asset, capable of reaching any corner of the European theater, supporting ground operations and shaping the final stages of the war. Its versatility, toughness, and reliability made it indispensable in the Allied air arsenal. By early 1945, the Luftwaffe had been severely weakened, yet remnants of German air power still posed threats to Allied operations. The P-47 Thunderbolt played a critical role in maintaining air superiority, ensuring that bombers could strike with minimal losses and ground troops could advance without fear of enemy air attacks. Squadrons of Thunderbolts patrolled the skies daily, intercepting the few remaining German fighters, including FW-190s and Bf-109s. Even against these nimble opponents, the JUG's speed in a dive, heavy armament, and tactical boom and zoom maneuvers allowed pilots to dominate the airspace. By leveraging altitude and energy, P-47 pilots could strike effectively, then climb back out of danger before the enemy could counterattack. A notable operation over Nuremberg demonstrated the P-47's ability to control contested skies. A formation of P-47s escorted B-17s deep into the heart of Germany. On approach, they were engaged by a group of Luftwaffe fighters. Using coordinated tactics, the JUGs shot down multiple enemy planes while sustaining minimal damage themselves. Their presence prevented the German fighters from reaching the bombers, proving that the P-47 was as much a guardian as it was a fighter. Beyond dogfighting, the Thunderbolt's ground attack capabilities complemented its air superiority role. Pilots could swiftly transition from air combat to attacking retreating enemy convoys or disrupting reinforcements. This dual role made the P-47 especially effective during the chaotic final months of the war, where air dominance directly influenced ground operations. Even with Allied control of the skies, the psychological impact of the P-47 persisted. German pilots learned to avoid confrontations with the JUG whenever possible, knowing that its speed, firepower, and durability made it a formidable adversary. Allied bomber crews, in contrast, grew increasingly confident flying under P-47 escort, trusting that their escorts could handle any threat that appeared. By April 1945, as Allied forces approached the heart of Germany, the P-47 Thunderbolt had secured a lasting legacy in aerial warfare. Its ability to combine fighter performance with ground attack efficiency ensured that the Allies could maintain relentless pressure from the air, ultimately contributing significantly to the collapse of German resistance. By April and early May 1945, the war in Europe was entering its final chapter. German forces were retreating, cities were in ruins, and the skies were dominated by Allied aircraft. Even in these final days, the P-47 Thunderbolt remained a key instrument of victory, flying missions that combined escort, ground attack, and reconnaissance in rapidly changing conditions. Pilots often flew multiple sorties per day, targeting retreating columns, remaining defensive positions, and supply depots. The Thunderbolt's combination of 8.50 caliber machine guns, bombs, and rockets made it lethal against both ground and aerial targets. Pilots adapted to the chaotic battlefield, shifting from bombing runs to strafing enemy vehicles, then providing cover for advancing Allied troops, all in a single mission. One remarkable account involved Captain Jerry Johnson, who flew a mission over southern Germany in the final days of the war. Spotting a convoy attempting to flee, he executed a low-level attack, destroying multiple vehicles despite heavy small arms fire. On the way back, his aircraft was struck by flak, riddling the fuselage with holes, yet he managed to land safely. Stories like these demonstrated both the durability of the P-47 and the courage of the men who flew it. Thunderbolts also played a role in preventing last-ditch Luftwaffe attacks. Even with dwindling German aircraft numbers, sporadic air attacks threatened bombers and ground forces. P-47 pilots intercepted these threats decisively, ensuring Allied dominance of the skies until Germany's surrender. The final missions of the war were not only about combat effectiveness, but also about psychological impact. German soldiers and civilians alike recognized the unmistakable roar of the Jug's engine, signaling that Allied forces controlled the air. For Allied troops, the presence of P-47s brought reassurance and a sense that victory was near. By the time Victory in Europe Day, May 8, 1945, arrived, the P-47 Thunderbolt had flown thousands of sorties, destroyed countless enemy vehicles and aircraft, and firmly established itself as a symbol of Allied air power. Its legacy was not only measured in kills and destroyed targets, but in the lives saved and the confidence it instilled in those fighting below. With the end of the European War in May 1945, the P-47 Thunderbolt transitioned from a wartime weapon to a symbol of American aviation engineering and pilot bravery. After years of grueling combat missions, thousands of Jugs returned to the United States, where they were celebrated as one of the most effective fighters of World War II. Pilots and ground crews reflected on the aircraft's durability, firepower, and versatility. Many described the Thunderbolt as a plane that could be trusted to survive where others might fail. The radial engine's ability to keep running under heavy damage, the rugged airframe that absorbed hits from flak and bullets, and the impressive armament all combined to create a fighter that could dominate the skies and strike decisively on the ground. Veterans often recounted their favorite missions, emphasizing the bond between pilot and plane. Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson once said, "Flying the Jug was like having a partner who never quit on you. No matter how many bullets or flak it took, it kept you in the fight." Such sentiments were common among pilots, reinforcing the P-47's reputation not just as a machine, but as a trusted companion in war. Beyond personal stories, the aircraft influenced future aircraft design. Its success as a high-speed, durable, multi-role fighter demonstrated the importance of combining survivability with offensive capabilities. Lessons learned from the P-47 shaped post-war fighter development, emphasizing armor protection, engine reliability, and versatile armament. The aircraft also left its mark in popular culture and military history. Its nickname, Jug, reflected both affection and respect, and it became an icon of American air power. Museums across the United States now display restored P-47s, allowing future generations to witness the engineering marvel that carried Allied pilots through some of the most dangerous skies of the war. Even decades later, the stories of the Thunderbolt continue to inspire. From daring dogfights to low-level ground attacks, the P-47's legacy is one of resilience, strength, and unwavering performance under pressure. It proved that in the chaos of war, a well-designed aircraft could save lives, secure victories, and leave a lasting impression on history.
After World War II, the P-47 Thunderbolt did not simply vanish from service. While jet aircraft were beginning to emerge, the Jug continued to play a role in training, tactical exercises, and secondary missions for the U.S. Army Air Forces and later the U.S. Air Force. Its rugged design and forgiving handling made it an ideal aircraft for teaching new generations of pilots the fundamentals of high-performance fighter operations. Air bases across the United States and in overseas territories used P-47s to prepare pilots for combat scenarios. Instructors emphasized dive tactics, boom and zoom maneuvers, and low-level ground attack strategies, all lessons learned from the European theater. Young pilots benefited from the aircraft's reliability. Mistakes that might have been fatal in more delicate planes were survivable in the Jug, allowing them to gain confidence and skill before transitioning to newer models. The Thunderbolt also saw limited post-war operational use in other theaters. In the Pacific and Asia, it supported occupation forces, reconnaissance missions, and ground attack training. Even as jet fighters began to dominate, the P-47 remained a benchmark for durability, firepower, and versatility. Its lessons shaped air combat doctrine and inspired designs that balanced speed, firepower, and pilot survivability. Veterans who returned to civilian life often recounted the P-47 as a machine that taught discipline, precision, and courage. Air shows and exhibitions featuring the Jug allowed people to witness firsthand the engineering excellence that had contributed to Allied victory. Stories of pilots surviving extreme combat conditions in heavily damaged P-47s became part of aviation lore, illustrating not only the plane's toughness, but also the resilience of those who flew it. By the late 1940s, most P-47s were gradually retired from frontline service, replaced by faster, jet-powered fighters. However, its influence endured. Lessons learned from the Jug informed designs such as the F-84 Thunderjet and later multi-role aircraft, bridging the gap between propeller-driven fighters and the jet age. The P-47 Thunderbolt had not only secured victory in Europe, but had also left a lasting imprint on air warfare strategy and pilot training. The P-47 Thunderbolt, affectionately nicknamed the Jug, ended World War II as one of the most respected and versatile fighters in the Allied arsenal. Its legacy was built on a combination of firepower, durability, and adaptability that few aircraft of its era could match. Unlike lighter, more maneuverable fighters, the Jug excelled in delivering both aerial victories and ground destruction while protecting its pilots under the harshest conditions. The plane's reputation came not only from its design, but also from the men who flew it. Thousands of pilots survived missions that would have been fatal in lesser aircraft. The Jug's radial engine could keep running after severe damage, and its rugged frame absorbed punishment from flak, bullets, and crashes, saving countless lives. The bond between pilot and machine became legendary, with veterans recalling missions where the Jug's toughness allowed them to return home against all odds. The Thunderbolt's influence extended beyond the war. It shaped future fighter design by proving that multi-role capability, survivability, and pilot confidence were essential in modern aerial combat. It also set the standard for tactical support, demonstrating how a single aircraft type could perform escort, dogfight, and ground attack missions effectively. Today, restored P-47s in museums around the world serve as a testament to its engineering and historical significance. Aviation enthusiasts and historians study its design and combat record to understand how technology and strategy combined to win the skies over Europe. The Thunderbolt remains a symbol of American ingenuity and the courage of the pilots who trusted it with their lives. Ultimately, the Jug's legacy is one of resilience, versatility, and sheer power. It was not the fastest or the most agile, but it was reliable, deadly, and capable of enduring the toughest missions. For pilots, ground crews, and Allied forces alike, the P-47 Thunderbolt embodied the spirit of determination and strength that helped secure victory in World War II. Its story continues to inspire, reminding us that the right combination of engineering, courage, and strategy can change the course of history.
The story of the P-47 Thunderbolt, or Jug, is more than just a chronicle of battles and victories. It's a story of resilience, innovation, and the men who risked everything in the skies of World War II. Over its combat career, the P-47 flew thousands of missions, destroyed countless enemy aircraft and ground targets, and proved itself as one of the most versatile fighters of the era. Ace pilots like Francis Gabreski, Robert S. Johnson, and Hubert Zemke became legends not only because of their skill, but because the Jug allowed them to survive situations that would have grounded other aircraft. Its radial engine, heavy armament, and robust airframe made it a flying tank, capable of taking punishment while delivering devastating strikes. These qualities created a unique bond between pilot and plane, one that inspired loyalty, bravery, and remarkable feats of courage. Beyond its wartime achievements, the P-47 influenced the future of aviation. Its design and combat strategies helped shape post-war fighter development and pilot training, bridging the gap between propeller-driven aircraft and the emerging jet age. Veterans who trained on or flew the Jug passed on lessons that continue to inform military aviation to this day. The P-47's legacy lives on in restored aircraft displayed in museums, air shows, and documentaries, reminding new generations of its role in shaping the outcome of World War II. It stands as a testament to engineering excellence, the ingenuity of American aviation, and the determination of the Allied pilots who mastered it. In the end, the P-47 was more than just a fighter plane. It was a symbol of resilience and power, a protector in the sky, and a partner that pilots could trust to carry them through the deadliest skies of the 20th century. Its story continues to inspire awe, respect, and admiration, securing the P-47's place as one of history's most legendary aircraft.